Hello, I'm Rob Hallam and welcome to Car File. Now, in the history of car manufacturers, the Koreans are relative youngsters. And it wasn't that long ago that their cars were cheap, but not particularly cheerful. Well, nowadays it's a completely different story, with companies like Daewoo, Kia and Hyundai producing some great looking and great performing cars. And we're going to concentrate on two of those manufacturers today, namely Daewoo and Hyundai. We'll start off the programme as Francesca Robinson drives the uniquely styled Hyundai Coupe and Ginny Buckley gets behind the wheel of the Daewoo Nubira.
Now, when you think of coupes, you think sleek, sexy, sophisticated. Green? Yes, this is the new Hyundai Coupe. The old coupe was really quite sexy and very affordable. It bridged the gap between cheap, tacky wannabes and cars like the Peugeot 406 Coupe. It was economical, fun to drive, and it sailed along looking quite nice. This revised coupe has gained a radically sculptured bonnet and wings, new front and rear bumpers, and of course the inspiring light assembly at the front, bearing a striking resemblance to the former Toyota Celica. You do get 15-inch alloy wheels, but as with the old models, they do tend to look a bit lost in the coupe's massive wheel arches. Around town, it's quite impressive, leaving most boy racers eating your dust. Only one complaint though, when it comes to city driving, the turning circle is terrible, doubling the standard 3-point turn into a tiresome 6. Once you're on the move, this car does actually handle quite nicely. It feels safe even in the sharpest of bends with very little body roll. The braking is very responsive, and that's thanks to brake discs on all 4 wheels. But what does it for me is the smooth gearbox, reminding me ever so slightly of the Audi TT. As in most coupes, with the exception of a few, there isn't much legroom for passengers sitting in the back. However, once in the driver's seat, the revamped interior gives a very spacious feel. The seats are fully adjustable, giving a very comfortable driving position. However, I do find the steering wheel a tad on the large side. Now, Hyundai have done away with the black plastic and put silver in its place, which really isn't that bad. The dials are clearly visible and in keeping with the car's sporty image. Hyundai say they've only made a few mechanical alterations to improve drivability and refinement. Extra soundproofing has been added to improve low-speed engine noise, but when pushed hard or even driving fast, the engine becomes coarse sounding and it can be off-putting, especially on a long drive. This sleek green mean machine boasts Hyundai's 137 brake horsepower 2-litre version of the Beta engine carried straight from the original coupe, while the 1.6 boasts a newly developed Alpha engine. This, the 2-litre SE, will reach 0 to 60 in just over 9 seconds and produces a top speed of 124 miles per hour. Not extremely fast, you may be saying, but when put together with its fine road handling, 2-tone leather, alloy wheels, air conditioning and CD, not forgetting the Porsche-tuned suspension, you don't feel shortchanged with a price tag of £17,400. Short-changed, maybe not, but a colour change, maybe.
Before Daewoo started to build cars, they were a little more at home with the deep blue sea. That's because they built ships. So when they decided to diversify from the sea to the land, they were faced with a problem. I mean, let's face it, the performance and handling of a large ship is somewhat different to what you expect from 4 wheels. So to woo the car buying public, they dazzled them with hassle-free car buying and superb levels of after-sales service. It all started 2 years ago when Daewoo surprised many people by launching not 1, not 2, but 3 totally new cars at once. They were the Nubira, the Lanos and the Leganza. Now, they weren't great cars, but they were cheap, they were economical, and they came with a great sales package, qualities that wooed plenty of buyers. amongst you will be very pleased because the Nubira is easy to drive and you quickly feel at home behind the wheel. Unfortunately, it's also rather disappointing. This is the 2-litre CDX model, and although the press pack says that just like the 1.6, the engine has been refined, I've yet to find any signs of it. Although it's capable of a top speed of around 120 miles per hour and can get you from 0 to 60 in about 9 seconds, it feels rather sluggish and underpowered. The suspension is extremely hard, making for a rather fidgety ride. And as for the steering, well, it's a bit too vague for my liking. And things don't fare much better with the gearbox and the clutch. The clutch is spongy and the gearbox is rather notchy and can be hard to actually get into gear. The whole driving experience is rather uneventful. You're certainly not going to buy the Nubira for thrill and driving excitement. Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't a bad car. It just isn't the drive of your life. But owning one will help to keep your stress levels down. That's because Daewoo promise customers hassle-free showrooms, uniform trade-in prices right across the country, and you can also bank on low insurance and cheap servicing, which, by the way, is included for the first 3 years. All that means no headaches for you, the buyer. And if you aren't tempted by that package, then the prices will definitely keep you happy. This 2-litre CDX will set you back £13,225. The price is actually one of the most positive aspects about the Nubira, and that, together with the levels of customer care, that no worries 3-year warranty and the 3 years free servicing, are the things that will tempt you into a car that on its own is pretty unexciting.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's Korea's answer to the Ford Galaxy. It's their MPV, the Hyundai Trajet. Unfortunate in name because the first 5 letters are the first 5 of the word tragedy, but it's not that bad when you first look at it. The styling isn't all that bad at all, very similar to the Voyager or even the V-Class, if you like, that sort of thing. 7 seats, loads of little cubby holes. You can take them out, slide them around, back of seat trays, you know, the sort of thing. The quality of cabin materials is not bad. You get all the whistles and bells we expect these days, from aircon to intelligent security to electric everything. Now, if you're familiar with the smooth 2.3-litre Ford Galaxy engine, you'll be a little bit disappointed with Hyundai's gruff offering, but it does have the power to pull a full load quite well, and I checked it out with the family one weekend. Now, as usual with these MPVs, people carriers, you have 7 seats, but you don't have the luggage space for 7 people, which is very annoying. Still, we've got enough for a weekend away, and that's about it. You've got this innovative kind of netting affair thing, which is not bad for getting some unusual things. But apart from that, not much space at all. So if you were going on a long holiday with, say, 7 people, you'd need that pod on the top. Now, we've enjoyed a nice weekend away with the family. The kids have enjoyed it. Whether I'd buy one for a full long-term commitment, I'm not too sure. To sum up then, the Hyundai Trajet offers, well, it's a little bit different from a Galaxy, and it's certainly cheaper than a Galaxy, and on Hyundai's track record, the Trajet may prove to be more reliable than a Ford Galaxy. Now, little details like the sexy chrome handles are really a joy. What didn't we like? Well, the engine could be much more refined. Most annoying niggles, though, on our dislike list, the way you catch your fingers on the back hatch, and how incredibly stiff the seat release is, which lets you enter the back. All in all, if you're in the market for a new MPV, the Trajet from Hyundai could be just a vehicle for you and your family, the Korean connection.
Well, that's it for part 1, but right after the break, Ian Royle will be driving the Hyundai Accent, Ginny Buckley will be nipping about in that cute little Daewoo Matiz, and I'll be driving the Daewoo Nubira Estate, so we'll see you soon.
When the letter arrived from Hyundai a few weeks ago inviting us to Scotland for the launch of the new Hyundai Accent, there was a bit of head scratching around the office. The Hyundai Accent, that's a small car. No, it's a medium-sized car. And then sort of whispers started going around the room. Does anyone know what the Hyundai Accent looks like? I mean, be honest, if I said to you, describe the Hyundai Accent, you'd be stuck, wouldn't you? Well, 5 years on from the original launch of the Accent, Hyundai bring us the all-new Accent. Now, as you can see, the resemblance is still there. It's hardly a break from tradition, but this is the new Accent. However, let's not get too far off the point, because what Hyundai buyers are concerned with is not looks, but price, specification and value for money. What Hyundai say you get with the Accent is a C-Class car for the price of a B-Class car. In reality, that means you get something the size of a Ford Focus for the price of a Ford Fiesta. The entry-level 1.3 model will come in at less than £8,000. Something like this 1.5 GLS 5-door will be under £10,000. Now, inside you have a totally new dashboard and seats. Hyundai, I think, have done a reasonable job of making the interior look fairly pleasant. Instead of that mass of grey plastic, they've broken it up with this sort of hi-fi effect centre console, which looks okay. The steering wheel is adjustable, the seating position is very comfortable. In this GLS model, you also get a radio CD, air conditioning, the ubiquitous damped cup holders as well. And Hyundai claim more head and legroom than in either a Golf or an Astra, which, to be honest, seems slightly hard to believe, but they say it, so we have to believe it. Now, it's all very well kitting a car out with all the goodies, but at the end of the day, you want to know how it drives. So how does the Accent actually drive out on the road? What's it like? Well, not bad at all, to be perfectly honest. At cruising speeds on the motorway, it's very quiet and very refined. There's very little wind noise into the cabin. The engineers have certainly done a good job there. The steering position and driving position is very comfortable too. We found that the clutch is very light, but the gear shift perhaps not quite so. It feels very notchy, particularly the shift down from third into second. Now, we're prepared to give Hyundai the benefit of the doubt. The fact that this car is still brand new, it's only done some 700 miles or so, and maybe it just needs some loosening up. Power in the Accent comes from either a 1.3 petrol putting out 84 brake horsepower or a 1.5 petrol putting out 88 brake horsepower. Both will cover about 40 miles to the gallon, and there's the option of a 4-speed automatic transmission. When trouble is unavoidable, standard driver and passenger airbags and seatbelt pretensioners protect occupants. The new car took just 27 months to develop at a cost of $200 million. Hyundai plans to build 350,000 units a year at the Ulsan No. 1 plant in Korea. In the UK, expect Hyundai sales to be around the 12 to 14,000 units a year. Amazingly, in 1998, the Accent sold nearly 15,000 versions. Power steering is standard on all models. ABS is standard on the more expensive models, as well as a safety feature called electronic brake distribution, which varies the force between the front and rear axles depending on the weight of the cargo and the passengers. Now, Hyundai claim it's one of the few cars in its class to have this safety feature. Hyundai say that they've had help from the engineers at Lotus in developing the suspension and ride of the Accent. Although, to be honest, we found after driving on the roads of Scotland the ride to be very wallowy and soft and needed to be a lot firmer. So, although the Accent has changed, it hasn't really altered that much. If you're looking for a decent-sized car, a value-for-money car, but without having to pay the high cost of something like a Golf, a Focus or an Astra, then look towards this Accent. Along with a 3-year unlimited mileage warranty, the Accent really is a great all-round package from those very clever people in Korea.
After the last couple of budgets, you could be forgiven for thinking that the government's public enemy #1 is in fact the motorist. Every year we get stung just a little bit more for making a huge investment in buying a car, for spending hundreds of pounds of our hard-earned cash on running it, and wasting countless hours stuck in traffic on our congested roads. It makes you wonder why we bother, doesn't it? Still, the manufacturers seem to have cottoned on to our worries, and they reckon they've come up with a solution to cheaper motoring and keeping the Chancellor happy.
They started off in the east, in countries used to terrible traffic and pollution, and they're catching on over here in a big way. First was the Seat Arossa, followed by Ford's curvy car. More recently, we've seen the Daihatsu Move and the Hyundai Trajet. Dare we mention the Mercedes A-Class? Well, yes, it did have a tendency to roll around a bit too much in the early days, but those problems are over and it's all sorted now.
Yes, our roads are now packed with diminutive little motors. And this is the latest addition to the baby brigade. It belongs to Daewoo, and they've christened it the Matiz.
This baby of the Korean Daewoo family is the latest in 4 new models they've launched over the past 12 months. And I reckon they've saved the cutest till last. It's cheeky and perky, and it reminds me of a taller version of Renault's Twingo, which has unfortunately never been on sale here in the UK.
This is the 5-door SE Plus, and it'll cost you £7,320. The entry-level model is exactly £1,000 less. Now, the Matiz is the smallest car in its very tiny class, at just under 3.5 metres long. But what it lacks in length, it more than makes up for in height. Which means, of course, that you get plenty of headroom in here. In fact, the whole driving position is extremely comfortable, and you do feel like you're actually in a larger car. There's plenty of legroom, and the boot is also a usable size. You get even more space if you fold the rear seats down.
The interior isn't as adventurous as it should be. It's smart and it's practical, and the curves are a bit reminiscent of the car, but I reckon they should have gone for something a bit more daring.
Under the bonnet, you'll discover that the Matiz is no pocket rocket. It's propelled along by a tiny 800cc engine that produces just 50 brake horsepower.
So you won't find yourself whizzing around at great speeds, but you will find yourself pleasantly surprised at just how nippy it feels around town. Out on the open road, the experience isn't quite as fun. You can feel the 800cc's begin to struggle, and you really need to work the engine. And as for the motorway, well, you're in for a noisy ride. But don't forget, this is a small city car, and that is where it will spend most of its life, pottering around town.
The Matiz is an ideal car if you're working on a very tight budget, or it would be a great second car. Overall, it's an excellent package at a very affordable price. It'll do 44 miles to the gallon, and it's a very cheap insurance group too. And don't forget, this is a Daewoo we're talking about. You know, great specs. And let's not forget the full Daewoo after-sales package. Sorry to throw a spanner in the works, but do you remember the A-Class and its tendency to wobble? Well, some journalists recently took Daewoo's new baby out for a spin, and they rolled it. They were reversing at 50 miles per hour and applied a half lock. Oops. So they phoned up the man from Daewoo, borrowed another Matiz, and it did it again. So what's going on? All in all, I reckon that the future is looking rosy for this little Korean bundle. And who knows, its winning combination may even tempt John 2 Jags Prescott into practising what he preaches.
When Daewoo initially launched the cars in the UK, it was a bit of a gamble. For starters, it was a brand name that no one had ever heard of. They had a unique pricing structure as well, whereby if you go in a showroom, the price on the windscreen of any given car, that was the price you'd pay. Now that's great when you come to sign for the vehicle, there's no nasty surprises, but it did mean you'd lost the edge with the salesman in terms of there was no real power that you had for haggling to get that extra special deal. Another area where Daewoo seemed to be different was they put most of their emphasis onto what actually happened to the cars after they'd been sold. In fact, they won the What Car Award for Best Warranty and Service. Now, that's all well and good, but what about the most important bit, the car itself? Well, the original Daewoo's were pretty uninspiring, very dull, not very nice to look at. But now they're producing cars that can easily compete with the big European and Japanese manufacturers, and this Nubira Estate is no exception. Whereas the original Daewoo's lines were extremely harsh and boxy, the new car clearly shows the results of extensive investment and design work to give a clean and modern shape, which no longer looks out of place alongside Fords and Vauxhalls. The Nubira is available in two trim levels, SE and CDX, with the latter coming with alloy wheels as standard, and the Estate body design also gives you 550 litres of luggage space, which is essential if you have a big family or a busy sales rep. Now you get a choice of engines with a Nubira, a 1.6 or a 2 litre, both of which are petrol. The car I've got today is the 2 litre petrol, 0 to 60 time about 9 seconds and an average fuel consumption about 35 miles to the gallon. The engine does pull really well and it's quite responsive, and especially on the motorway when you're cruising you've still got loads of power left over for overtaking, and I think even when the boot's fully laden you're not going to have a problem there. Now the fact there's no diesel engine in the range is going to be a bit of a disappointment to some of the real long-haul road users, and it's certainly an area where Daewoo are going to lose some sales to the competition, especially in today's climate with worries over rising fuel costs. Well, I have to say that I'm quite impressed with this Nubira, and any preconceptions I had from driving the original cars, well, they're long forgotten. And yep, it might not have the brand image of some of the competitors or a diesel engine in the range, but I still think they offer superb value for money and rock solid peace of mind with an after-sales service that's bound to have got many a car dealer's attention. Now, on next week's Car File, we're looking at what could be the next great motoring revolution, and that's super minis. If you've got no space to park or no money for big petrol bills, they're just the thing for you. We're looking at the Renault Clio Sport, the Alfa Sport Wagon, and I'll be driving the Fiesta Zetec, so we'll see you next week.